Hey folks, welcome to Atomic Game Theory, the show that uses conflict theory and math to study the tiny decisions that can make big differences between winning and losing your favorite games. So I'll go out on a limb here and bet that for most of you, the last game you played was all about efficiency. Lots of modern games are all about gaining victory points over time and inching towards some dramatic finale. But when we talk about the great moments in games like chess or poker, we don't talk about those slow climbs to the top. We want to focus on big, awesome moments like gambits or bluffs or some sort of trick play. That's the only reason I've ever watched high school football, because there was a trick play on YouTube, because it was fun. But how do you make a trick play in Catan, or put everything on the line in Ascension, or, bluff someone into backing down and roll for the galaxy? Don't get me wrong, those are all great games, but they're not the kind of games that exemplify risk. You know what game does? Timeline. Timeline is a great simple game about putting cards into their rightful place in history. Both sides show a moment in history, but only one side has the date and players are not allowed to look at that side. It starts with a single card, and every turn players get to attempt to put a card either in the past or in the future on the timeline in the right spot. So if the timeline had two cards with dates like -250 and 1979, you could easily bet that the invention of the windmill was right in between. As the game goes on, the timeline gets longer and longer, and it gets harder and harder to put your card in the right spot. And look, just in case you're friends with a history major, Timeline has come out with multiple versions. You've got history, but also inventions, music and theater, discoveries, and plenty of other ways to use your knowledge to your advantage. If you place your card incorrectly, it gets discarded and you have to draw a new one. And the winner is the first person to play all four of their cards properly. So let's do a little experiment and quickly play a full round of Timeline. In your starting hand, you've got The Way of the Dragon, the invention of the flute, the invention of the refrigerator, and the construction of the Trojan horse. It's your turn. Take a moment and pick one of your four cards and decide where it goes on the timeline, whether in the past or in the future, compared to the invention of the camera. Alright, let's take a look at how you did. Now, as much as I'd like to praise your historical knowledge, the question is not whether you got the answer right. It's about what card you played. So let's go and take a look at the dates on your cards. First off, construction of the flute. That's ancient, way too easy. And the Trojan horse? I mean, I can't put an exact date to the Iliad off the top of my head, but I can guess it's probably in the past compared to a camera. Also too easy. Way of the Dragon? I'm pretty sure you need a camera before filming a movie, so that's in the future. Also too easy. But I don't really know which came first, the refrigerator or the camera. It's basically a toss-up. And here's the trick to Timeline. Never start with an easy card. You should absolutely play the refrigerator first every single time. First, notice that if there are n cards on the table on my turn, then there are n+1 spots available for me to play my card. So even if I have no idea about the date on my card, if I make a completely random guess, when there are only 4 cards on the board, I have a 20% chance of being successful. If I wait until there are 15 cards out, my chances drop dramatically to 6.25%. Plus, some timelines are conducive to a guess, while some are just too close together to make guessing easy. It's possible that I may not correctly place that card, but if I do, then now all I have left are easy cards, so my hand has gotten dramatically better. Now, Timeline plays the same if you know every single date or if you don't know any of them at all, but the real game is when you aren't confident about when the dates are, which is what the game is banking on. By playing my risky cards early, I'm actually minimizing my risk and making it more likely that I'm going to win the game. But many Timeline players play their most confident cards first, because that feels like winning in the moment, and then they get in trouble later on. Look, Timeline is a fun game, it's a great gift, give it to your friends and then beat them like crazy until they figure out the trick that we just talked about. This kind of risk-avoidant behavior shows up in lots of situations. Enough that author Len Fisher wrote an amazing book where he called it one of his deadly dilemmas, the Stag Hunt problem. Alright, imagine that you are a knight in the court of King Arthur, and he wants to have like a big feast, so he sends you all out on a hunt to find... Let's do fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables hunt. Everyone knows that somewhere out in the woods there's this magnificent creature, this wonderful summer squash. But this squash is strong and fast. It's going to take teamwork to bring this squash back to Camelot for the feast. On the other hand, you also know that the forest is home to some slow, lumbering spinach, and everybody's okay with spinach too. Let's set up a matrix that compares my utility values to those of the other knights. King Arthur loves squash, so this is a worthy reward for everyone. However, you know that Arthur finds some joy in spinach as well, and it's real easy to find. So you could just go find some spinach instead, if you wanted to. But if you go find spinach, then you can't hold your part of the line in the squash hunts, and it runs free. Or maybe you hunt squash while everybody else grabs spinach. And of course, if everyone goes to get spinach, Arthur isn't impressed with anyone. This is a problem we call Squash Hunt, and in a real sense, the best case scenario is for us all to cooperate and go after the main objective. But what if I'm selfish? What if I just want to have a better utility score than you, like the Knights of Camelot did? When I look at my advantage, I see that the best case is for me to let you all go fail in your Squash Hunt while I go grab some spinach. That puts me firmly in the lead. If winning is having more points than anyone else, all the other knights are also going to hunt spinach, leaving us with a terrible meal. And the king is not going to be happy with us because he wants squash. All right, but this also doesn't tell us the whole story of Squash Hunt. So let me do one more matrix, and this time I'm going to add some probabilities to make it a little more realistic. Let's say that getting a squash is a rousing success, so we'll give it 10 utility. Meanwhile, your spinach is only worth 5 utility. But finding the spinach is almost a sure thing. 100% of the time, you get your spinach. And it's only 50% likely that your team will catch the squash. Okay, so our choices remain the same here. Either I can hunt squash or I can hunt spinach. Let's leave the top right entry blank for a second. Using our basic probabilities, I can create some new values. Since both of the first 2 boxes give me 5 utility, it doesn't matter what I do. At the bottom right, I have a 100% chance of gaining 2 utility. And that's not great, but if I'm harvesting spinach, that's where the other knights are going to try and push me. The wrinkle in this problem comes in dealing with that top right entry. Let's say I can figure out the probability of successfully catching a squash all on my own. Let's call it 20%. In that case, both strategies have the same expected value, so it doesn't matter what I do. If it's higher than 20%, I always gain more utility by hunting squash. If it's less than 20%, I should go after spinach every time. And yet I can hear your worries. You don't want to disappoint King Arthur, and it's possible that in this one single instance, you'll go after the squash and you'll fail. That feeling, that's Squash Hunt in a nutshell, and a lot of modern games avoid the problem by giving you this slow ramp up so that you feel like you're in the game all the time. You don't want to feel like you have lost and have no chance of winning because you went after a risk. But if you're the kind of gamer that likes risk and rewards, here's a quick list of games for you. One of my all-time favorite games is Hearts. And if you like Risk, you should play with your friends and try to shoot the moon every single time. Zombie Dice is all about pushing your luck to get as many points as possible, but if you roll too many zombies, you get nothing. Sushi Go gives the most points for drafting sets of cards, but your opponents might be able to steal away what you need, netting you 0 points for the round. In Codenames, you can usually get your team to guess a single clue, but can they handle 4 in a round, 5? If they can, winning is almost guaranteed. Mystic Veil is an incredible new deck builder, but instead of just drawing a hand of 5 cards, you have a push your luck mechanic when it comes to gaining your initial hand each round. Finally, The Grizzled is all about your team wading through as many obstacles as you can in a mission before fleeing. But if you find too many obstacles, your mission fails completely. Learning how and when to accept risk is a huge part of games. What are the chances of failure? What kinds of rewards make a risk worthwhile? And maybe the most important question, how can you gain victory over your risk-averse friends by embracing risk? Now you're thinking like a game theorist. And for all you game theorists out there, I have some news for you. Go right now and check out atomicgametheory.com. This is your new home for all my videos, plus lots of blog posts talking even more about games and puzzles and game theory. If you enjoyed what's happening in these videos, there's plenty more there for you to read. So thanks for watching.